In the meantime, the Nigerian government has declared bandits as terrorists. This comes after the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, gazetted a court judgment that ordered the government to make the declaration. Justice Taiwo Taiwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja on November the 25th, 2021, granted an ex parte application by the federal government for Yan Bindiga, the Hausa word for gunmen, and Yan Ta'ada, the Hausa word for terrorists, to be declared as terrorists. Now, joining us on NC Continental Prime tonight to discuss this latest development is Ahmed Akanbi, a legal practitioner. Hello, Ahmed, and thanks for joining us on the news.
It's my pleasure.
Now, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, said the delay in officially gazetting bandits as terrorists was to ensure things were done in line with international best practices. What does this entail?
Well, what it simply entails is that there are processes to those things, there are procedures to it. I mean, what the law says is that before a particular organization or a group of persons can be designated as bandits, or before that particular association can be prohibited, there are lots of requirements to be satisfied. You must ensure that you have your facts right. You must ensure that the activities which they perpetrate falls within the sphere of terrorism, because you have to, it's not for, the federal government does not have the right to expressly proscribe a particular organization as a terrorist organization. They have to go through the courts. And when you go through the courts, you have to place necessary facts before the court. And the court has to be convinced with the facts that you have placed before the court. The court looks through all the papers you've presented to it, and they have to make a decision at the end of the day that they are convinced that this is truly a terrorist organization, or they're involved in terrorism activities.
Others will point to the fact that critics of the federal government would say that the government go through this process before they prescribe the indigenous people of Biafra and describe them as a terrorist group.
Yes. Well, you know, the government has acts on the basis of security reports, security information. Most of the people don't have access to this security information. I would want to think that the government probably tarried a while. I mean, let's not forget that these groups were faceless. They were fictitious. They're majorly in the forest. For the IPOB, they would come out and say, we are IPOB. So you could put a face to the IPOB. But for most of these groups, you couldn't put a face to them. So it will entail a lot of security covert operations for you to be able to pin them down to a particular corner. And from there, you can now proceed to court.
Now, there's a school of thought that says the federal government lacks the political will to address the issue of insecurity and terrorism in the country, that we already have existing laws that tackle them. Do you agree with this, or do you think the official gazette will do things differently?
Well, there's a law that deals with issues of terrorism, Prohibition of Terrorism Act, and things like that. And what the government simply did was to run through the law. Like I said, the government cannot on its own prescribe an organization as a terrorist organization. You have to go to court.
There's due process.
There's due process. And part of what the court said to the government is that there must be a publication in the National Gazette. A gazette is an official announcement of government about certain decisions, informing the public that henceforth, nobody should deal with this group of people, nobody should deal with these organizations, and that's the essence of the Gazette. For those who contend that there's no political will, I disagree, because if there wasn't any, it's a step, it's a process, there are procedures to it, like I said. You have to go to court, you have to gather your facts first and foremost, then you have to go to court. Then pursuant to that, the Gazette will be issued.
But why is it coming so late?
Well, my take to it is it's better late than never. Maybe they didn't have the requisite information to proceed to court upon. Maybe when they felt they had the full facts, that was why they went to court. But like I said, it's better late than never.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, President Buhari recently said that security agencies in the country have been given the go-ahead to deal with criminals causing havoc in the country, but Nigerians have continued to ask the federal government to name, arrest and prosecute suspected sponsors and financiers of terrorism in Nigeria. Is this important? What do you make of this?
Well, but what the Terrorism Act says, I think the Terrorism Act gives requisite government agencies the power to go after finances of terrorist groups and organizations. Those groups are only able to function when they have access to finance. But if you starve them of funds, that means they can't function. And I'm aware that there's been some cooperation between the government in the UAE and the Nigerian government, where some convictions have been made in the UAE in respect of those that are financing groups like Boko Haram in Nigeria. So I think there's some conscious effort on the part of the government to starve this group of necessary funds.
But legally speaking,
Yes.
would naming them before prosecuting them in court be jumping the gun? Is it, or wouldn't it serve as a deterrent to others?
You know, these are issues that have security implications. This involves a lot of covert investigations.
Intelligence.
So you only want to
gathering.
put out information out then the public that will jeopardize the course of investigation. I'm sure when the time comes, when investigation has fully crystallized, all this information will be put out there in the public.
Then why do government officials do that all the time? Is it playing to the gallery?
I think they should.
There was a state governor too that said he was going to mention sponsors of terrorism, and he never did that.
The governor of Imo State, really,
Yes.
he never did that.
And as a
I
legal
think some of
practitioner,
some of these things should not be said, not until they're ready to put out that information. Because when you say those things, people are expectant. They expect you to disclose the identities of this person. But I'm sure at the appropriate time for issues of terrorism, the government will disclose. I'm sure about that. When they're taken to court, they will obviously disclose the identity anyway.
And it will be open for the whole world to see.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Ahmed Akanbi. We do appreciate your
It's a pleasure.
insight in
It's
this.
a pleasure. Thank you so much.